Welcome to the Brave Enough Show. I'm pumped. Today, we're going to be talking about leadership and stress. Hello. And we talk about the last few years of being a leader in whatever area you're in 2023 as we move into 2024. It's been rough. I love something I do once a year that I'm so passionate about because I get to coach a small group of women through a CME course that I created several years ago that I've rebranded. It's called Brave Balance. So it's updated, it's new, it's fresh, and it's a 12-week CME course. And I love it because I get to take a small group of women online through weekly coaching. We meet for an hour a week. It is an hour that will change your life. And if you're not sure, I promise you, join the course because it's probably the best CME money that you can spend this in my conference because it's life-changing. It's so good because we go through so many topics that are specific to women in medicine that you don't learn anywhere else and that you honestly may not feel comfortable talking around other people about or in other arenas, but you do in this environment because it's private, it's secure, and it's real life. We talk about everything from what our work situation is to what our home life situation is, how we create daily time for ourselves, how we move out of burnout into thriving, how we move from jobs where we're stuck, where we are underpaid, or we are taking on too much to move into jobs that we love and that we actually get to set how we work and when we work. There's so much more to this course than just a CME course or just a burnout course. It's honestly something I'm so proud of because of the evaluations. They are so positive in the fact that they are life-changing. And a lot of times they help women stay in medicine or stay in an area that they feel like they were shut out of or that they don't find joy in anymore, or move into a new area. So if you're interested, don't wait, reach out to me. I would love to have you in class. You don't have to be anything to be in this class. You are enough as you are, and I want to help you. It's called Brave Balance. It starts the beginning of March. I promise you, you won't regret it. So go online to becomebraveenough.com, click on courses and check out Brave Balance. And if you're not sure, send me an email at info@becomebraveenough.com and let's set up a 15-minute chat and talk about it. Okay, today's guests are Michelle Troseth and Dr. Tracy Christopherson, and they are the co-founders of MissingLogic. I got to know them and their work after I'd written my first book. They invited me on their podcast and really just to check out what they're doing. And they're really helping leaders achieve work-life balance. So they specifically work with teams and leadership to create healthy work cultures. And they have something that they have taught for years now called Polarity Intelligence. It's really cool. It's about being a leader and what's missing in leadership today. And this is heavy stuff, but we're going to talk about how to live unstoppable lives as leaders and how to really manage our stress as leaders. So I'm so encouraged that they came on the show today and they're going to share with you in whatever area you're leading, how to manage your stress. Thank you so much, ladies, for coming on. I'm so excited that we get to chat. We've chatted before, and I'm a huge fan of your work. So thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having us, Sasha.
Oh, we're super happy to be here. Thank you.
So I thought, this episode, we would really dive deep into stress and leadership because you two are experts. This is what you do every day. You help leaders really find work-life balance and teams find the right proper culture to promote that. And certainly in the area of healthcare, but I think pretty much in any profession, just showing up every day is stressful, right? Just getting to work is stressful. And then if you add any responsibility where you are leading teams of people or you're leading other people, right now, maybe you find yourself leading people in embracing changes you yourself do not love. It is stressful, right? Like it is another level of stress. I often say, if I could just show up and do anesthesia every day, I would love it. I would love being an anesthesiologist, but that's not all my life and my work entails, right? So
Right.
talk to me about, there's so many people out there that do leadership, but talk to me about what made you two decide to start a company specifically for leaders in the area of healthy culture and culture work and promoting work-life balance?
Well, I'm Michelle, so I will start. So a little bit about our journey and how we got here. So I am a nurse and Tracy's a respiratory therapist, and we actually have always been passionate about collaborative practice, and we met a long time ago. And we worked together at the bedside, and we saw the difference that culture made to our practice and to patient care. We like to say we did interprofessional practice before it was cool. And then we actually worked with a mentor to create professional practice environments and healthy work cultures. And we were privileged to take that work from one hospital to multiple health systems to a consortium across North America. And we found ourselves actually working as executives in a global company doing health transformation work. And then I became the president of the National Academies of Practice in 2017, which represents multiple different professions to advance interprofessional practice. But at the heart of it was always this healthy work culture and living the life that we wanted to live. So in 2017, we left our corporate jobs and we started our company, MissingLogic, and then started focusing exclusively on leaders. So I'll let Tracy pick up the ball from there.
Yeah. So thank you again, Sasha, for having us. And as Michelle mentioned, I'm a respiratory therapist, and Michelle and I actually met at hospital orientation. So over
I love
30 years ago, we were in a huge auditorium full of people in general orientation to the hospital. And they said, okay, stand up, turn around, shake the hand of the person behind you. That was me. And we like to say we've been shaking hands ever since. And, a great friendship developed, as well as a partnership as colleagues at the bedside. And we really grew up as leaders together and skinned our knees a few times on, some of our experiences. But as Michelle alluded to, we really became passionate about interprofessional collaborative practice and how to bring teams together, how to create healthy collaborative work environments. And we were working in the lab of all of it. So everything happened in our hospital that we worked in before it went out to other organizations. And over the course of time, well, actually, it was about a 14-year journey. I got my PhD in interprofessional healthcare studies. And when we left corporate, we just knew that there wasn't alignment with what our passion and our purpose was in the world anymore. It was time to step out on our own. We had been doing legacy planning for about 10 years. So we worked on our legacy. We knew we had greatness in us. And we had also had the opportunity to work with leaders all across North America in thousands of organizations, hundreds of leaders, and we got to see firsthand the challenges that they were experiencing and their organizations were experiencing. And while we all like to think we're unique, we're not, right? And many of the challenges that they were facing, they were assuming they were problems, and they were trying to solve those problems. But what we saw was those problems would come up over and over and over again. So they would be going, didn't we just solve this last week? Wasn't this on our agenda last year? How come we're seeing this again? And what we knew is that the problems they were trying to solve were not actually problems that could be solved, and that there was a logic that they were missing. They were using their superpower of problem solving, but in this case, it was really leading to failure over and over and over again. So when we left corporate, we said, okay, we have this knowledge, we have this understanding of this different way of looking at things, this missing logic, so to speak, and let's spend the rest of our careers bringing this to leaders all across the world so that they can stop wasting time and money and resources on problems that aren't solvable. And that's how we got started.
So good. That's so good. There's so many things there that I was like, oh my gosh. Okay. First, we could go so many ways with this. I really love being as an entrepreneur. I love that you all took an assessment of what you were doing and where it was going and said, this is not for us. And we have greatness in us. Like, I got chills when you said that, because so many women do not think that they have anything to launch on their own, or they think that they don't have greatness in them. And it breaks my heart, which is why I do Brave Enough, because I see so many women leaving medicine, leaving healthcare because they don't know that. So that's why I wanted to talk about stress today so much, is because I think, we are at such a pivotal point in healthcare that it is so broken, and we have such an opportunity to address it and change it. But what often we get caught up in is like the daily chronic problems that you mentioned, the daily stress that we're putting out this fire that we've put out a million times. And we don't have the energy to actually sit down and talk about culture work or changing our mission or changing the way we do things, because we're so focused on the stress of the day. So how do you get, can you just kind of talk about how you introduce this logic to leaders and really transform the way they solve problems?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, during the pandemic, when it happened, Tracy and I said, okay, what did we do? We knew we had to change how we were being. We knew we had to bring this logic to healthcare. But during the pandemic, when people were just over the top stressed, depressed, like really didn't know if they wanted to continue in healthcare, like you said. And so we put together a framework called the Dynamic Balance Effect Framework and started helping them in virtual settings. And through that work, it has grown and it has evolved. And basically, there's 3 pillars. So the way we introduce it is it's very personal. And the first pillar is mindful choices. And we help them get realigned to their principles and their values. Why did I go into medicine in the first place? What's really important to me? And almost creating a new identity for themselves. To your point, we can get so stuck into how things have been. We really don't even know who we really are anymore. So we spend some time with them on that. And then we introduce them to Polarity Intelligence. And I can tell you, Tracy can tell you, most people have never looked at challenges through this lens. So we ground them in personal polarities to start with. How do I leverage my professional life and personal life? People talk about work-life balance all the time, but they really don't have a strategy because they're not looking at it through a polarity perspective. And we help them create a dynamic balance blueprint and apply it. And once they see what their life is really like written on this blueprint, they're like, oh my gosh, no wonder I'm barely surviving. And so we help them with dual action strategies with that, and a lot of other personal polarities, doing and being. Women leaders are doers. We do. I got to outperform everybody else. And what we uncovered in our work is they really don't know how to be. They don't take that time in their life to carve out time for themselves to just be. And then the last pillar is personal alignment. So this is where we really work with them on recasting a vision for their future, how they really want their life to be, getting recentered on their purpose, helping them with goal setting that's going to help them have the life that they want as well. And we worked with them through that framework and eventually developed the Thriving, Resilient, Unstoppable, or TRU Leader program to help them. So we started at a personal level, and then we eventually can introduce it to even their organization.
So what do you say to the leader who says, okay, I want to change. I want to have work-life balance. I want to have alignment with my purpose, but I'm in a toxic environment. It can't be done. What do you say to that person?
Well, nothing's impossible. That's what I say to them. Well, I think the first thing is all change starts inside.
Yeah.
So you can't influence the external environment without changing the internal environment. And if you think it's not possible, it's not possible. But it's really about where do I need to put my attention? And as long as my attention is on the problems, is on everything that's happening externally to me, I can't regulate my internal state. So it really starts with these things of what's important to me and understanding that some of the tension that they're experiencing and the toxic environment that they're in is inundated with these polarities that we're talking about, right? So they're not problems that they can solve. And they think some of these situations that are toxic are just these, multitude of problems, from relationships to infrastructures in the organization, right? To just a number of different things that are piling up and making it really a toxic culture. And when we think about a polarity, let me just explain what that is first. So that are, it's two interdependent points of view or perspectives. They appear to be opposite or contradictory to each other, but they're interdependent. And so you have to have both. And if we're looking at these as a problem, then I'm thinking my perspective, if my perspective is right, your perspective is wrong. And that creates, right, that it creates that polarization in the organization, which fuels the toxicity in the organization, because we're turning away from each other, not toward each other. We're not leaning in to understand each other's perspectives that appear to be contradictory. We're actually pulling apart and making the tension greater. And so one of the first things we help them to see is, what is a problem? What do those look like, and how you solve problems? But what does it look like when you have a polarity and it's not a problem, right? And it can't be solved. It has to be leveraged, and you have to shift your perspective and open yourself up to understanding these other perspectives, which helps shift the culture, because we're all operating from fear and what I want and what I'm afraid is going to happen if you get what you want, right? It's all that kind of tension that creates that toxicity or fuels the toxicity.
Right. Yeah. It's really interesting how important it is to your daily work life when you feel like you're part of a team, that you're listened and you're valued and you are solving problems together, versus I'm going into work and I literally have to put on armor because I'm going into battle, right? And I hear all the time, I hear the different language amongst people and the stress that you carry it home. Like if you go, I always hear people say, well, I just can't do this job anymore. It's too stressful. And I get that. Like, I think, you probably shouldn't do this job anymore if it's this stressful, because it's not healthy for you. But I think sometimes when we go into our work day and life feeling like it's us against them, like whether that them is administration, or whether it's the nurses, or whether it's the doctors, or whether it's the patients, even, if you go into with the mindset, I know for me, if I go into that mindset of like, oh, it's us against them today, I got to put on the battle, I'm like ready for war, versus if I go in and go, I have this problem, but I'm with people who are going to help me solve it. It's totally different.
Yeah, it is. And I think one of the things that we're trying to do is bring this new competency to leaders. And we're looking at it as a competency. So Polarity Intelligence actually brings a common language and a common framework that you can leverage. And it has three components. It's the polarity mindset. So you understand what Tracy just described, the and both, and you're going to run into them all the time. But also it's about having healthy relationships and meaningful dialogue. And what we find is leaders need new skills to sit in the tension, to not back away from it, but to invite it, to recognize their preference pole, but not be afraid of somebody else's. So that's what we're bringing, is this combination of the three, so that you have like some tools in your toolkit to deal with having to wear that armor every day instead of doing what you've always done.
Because oftentimes they show up as conflict.
Yeah.
Which makes us feel like we got to put our armor on, right? I'm in battle. Right. But conflict is not all bad. Resistance is not all bad. Tension is not all bad. We're indoctrinated to believe when that happens, we got to relieve it, right? Whatever it takes, walk away, right? We've got to do whatever it takes to relieve the tension. But oftentimes it's not about that. It's about leveraging it. It's good. It moves you forward. And I think the other thing these three things do is they get us focused on a shared purpose. I think we've lost some sense of shared purpose in the organizations we're in. It's getting to be all about me or you or what's wrong. And we're stuck in that, mired in that, right? And it's really about how can we come together, to your point, Sasha, to achieve a shared purpose. We all came here, we're all trying to do the best we can. In healthcare, many of us are there, right? Because we want to help other people. We want to
Yep.
see people get better. And we all have that kind of sense of purpose. So it's just getting back to how can we have a shared sense of purpose, and how can we sit in these tensions and understand them and leverage them and not have them work on us, because polarity is a universal law.
Yeah.
Nobody's getting away from it.
Mm-mm.
It's everywhere. It's in our personal lives, our organizations, our communities, our world, our nations. Nobody's getting away from it. So why not learn how to leverage it and be successful at it and get sustainable results than having fight against it every single day, right? It's
Right.
really pretty much most of what's happening that we face are polarities. They're not problems.
Right. Yeah. This is really interesting, and it changes. I recently read a book that talked all about accepting things and how to reframe and not rename, and how reframing is different than renaming things. Like, taking something that is stressful and a crisis and just renaming it as not a problem, it doesn't fix the situation. But reframing it can really help you. And that was really insightful for me, because I thought, I sometimes I get annoyed with leaders who are just like, well, everything's fine, everything's going to be okay. And it's like, no, we just had like massive budget cuts, and like, let's call it what it is. But at the same time, not staying in that negative, like, we can't fix this, we're not going to be okay. But that's more reframing. Like, it's okay to reframe it. That's different than renaming things or toxic positivity. And that's not what you're talking about at all. You're talking about, let's use this and leverage this polarity and leverage the differences, and let's remove but and against, but really embrace and both, right? Yes.
Yeah.
So
And there are problems that have to be solved. This isn't about replacing that, but most of them have some level of polarity associated either underneath the problem, or the problem actually is a polarity. So it's both and when it comes to solving problems and leveraging polarities too.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what do you tell the leader that is listening and they're like, I'm so stressed, I don't want to lead anymore? Because I've seen this so much lately, and we've lost so many good leaders because the job is such that it drives me crazy. But we have this ridiculous old school thought in healthcare that you either have to be full-time and a leader, which is 24/7 on, never off the clock, have no life, or you can't be a leader. And it just, just the other day I was talking to someone about a leadership position, and this leader literally told me, well, it won't work for you because you have boundaries. Basically saying, because you have boundaries, you can't be a leader. And you can never have an out of office message. You can never get away. What do you say? How do you respond to that? How do you two respond to that? Because that, I think, we are losing leaders, and they're leaving in droves because they're given two options. You can be a leader where you're on 24/7, or you can quit, and no in between. What do you say to that?
Well, we tell them it starts with you. Like, they have to get healthy themselves. Like Tracy mentioned that earlier. So taking the time to look at it from a different perspective, and that this is what we call leadership norms that have been there forever. That's a great example of a leadership norm. It's just the way it is.
Yeah.
Suck it up.
We've always done it this way. Yeah.
We've
Have
always
to work
done it
hard
this
to
way.
be successful.
Yep, that's just the way it is. And so recognizing that there are different ways. So take the time to invest in yourself, to learn about yourself, to get strong yourself. That is really important. And, we've even called this phenomena that happens the imbalanced leader syndrome that it creates in leaders, because they start working 24/7. They put everyone else before themselves. And it's just we see the pattern just like you do. It just happens over and over again. So And we've seen the transformation when leaders do put themselves first and they do understand a different perspective and they do put boundaries in place and they have a way to manage the different tensions that are never going to go away, that are always working on you. So probably our main mantra is, don't let yourself don't make yourself a sacrifice for how this is now. Be part of making it different and start by learning from other leaders how it can be done differently. Tracy, I don't know what you'd add to that.
Yeah, I think I'm so glad you brought this up because we
Yeah.
think this is one of the leading causes of burnout and stress in leaders right now are these leadership norms.
Yeah.
And, they're expectations of behaviors, right? That we created as leaders. We created these years ago and we've been living under them forever. And they're not truths. They're not absolutes. They're just beliefs that we've been indoctrinated with. And we can change it. We can change it collectively if we want to change it. And it starts with being strong and it starts with being brave, right? Brave enough to say, this is what I need to have a fulfilling life. And maybe it is about not working here anymore if you can't see that, right? Like it's about making a mindful choice and standing in our own power to say, this is what I need to live a fulfilling, happy, robust life. I need these boundaries. If you want me to fully participate in this organization as a leader, then I need time and space for myself. I need some of these things to show up because when we're burning ourselves up and out, we cannot be the leader that we truly want to be because we're so depleted. We can't think straight. We're not performing at our highest level. It has a negative impact on us personally, but it also negatively impacts the organizations. So we're all about busting through these leadership norms, creating new norms that are about well-being and resilience and stress management and all those types of things. That's how leaders should be leading, not from these old norms that are based on years and years ago around how leaders should behave, right?
Yes. Okay. I wish I could just yell amen right now. Because it drives me crazy. I'm like, and that's like saying, I even hear people say, oh, that has a leadership lifestyle or lifespan of 2 years. This role has a leadership lifespan. And I'm like, that's like us saying, we're not going to fix this disease. We're just going to let someone die of this disease in 2 years versus try to lengthen life. Like let's fix the actual problem. The problem then is not the person, it's the role and what is expected of them, right? Like
the norms. It's the norms. And it's pervasive. It's across any role, really, right? And so it's about us as more experienced leaders taking a stand, writing some new norms. That's why leaders in organizations are so important because the culture comes from you as a leader. If you're willing to take a stand and start to implement the things that will gradually change it, then you're creating new norms for the younger leaders that have a better hope of perpetuating it over time if we set the example as leaders today, right? But if we keep succumbing to these norms, then who's going to take that stand, right? Who's going to create a different leadership culture for leaders coming up? So that's why we're so passionate about working with the leaders because they're the linchpin in every organization. They have the key.
Yep. So I love all this. This was so powerful and so good. And I'm sure people that are listening are going to want more of your truths and more of your information and all about you. And so tell us, where can the leaders listening today, where can they find you? Where can they find out more about MissingLogic?
Well, first place is go to our website, MissingLogic.com. And so there's information of how to get a hold of us, the work that we do on that website. And then they also can listen to our podcast. So we just changed the name of our podcast since you've been on it. It is now
just rebranded.
We just rebranded.
Love it. I love it.
It's now the TRU Leader Podcast. And our tagline is balancing leading and living.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
That's phenomenal.
So that's another, they can find us. And we just wrote a book. So
book, tell us about your book.
Our book, Polarity Intelligence, The Missing Logic in Leadership. is going to be on bookshelves everywhere starting January 16th, 2024. And and it's available for pre-order now on any major bookseller platform. And so they can pre-order the book and have it delivered on January 16th. So that was just another thing that Tracy and I did during the pandemic. In addition to coaching leaders, we also rolled up our sleeves and we wrote a book about this whole concept with a lot of different case studies and examples, and all the principles are in there. So would highly recommend that people get the book as well.
Oh, this is so good. This is such great information. Everybody stop what you're doing. Go to Amazon right now. Get their book, pre-order, download. You want this information. It's so important as a leader that you break out of these leadership norms and that you stay in healthcare, especially if you're listening and you're a woman. We need you to stay in healthcare. We need you to lead, and you have more options than just quitting or being a leader, right? There's so many other options in there, and you have more power than you really know you have. So thank you so much for coming on the show, you two. This was just incredible. I got to have you back for another episode. And I'm so thankful that we had this talk today.
Oh,
so are we. Thank you.
Yeah.
Was that not awesome? Okay, let me tell you. I want you to be at the Brave Enough conference this fall. I'm so passionate about it that I get emotional about it because it's life-changing to women. It helps us honestly remember who we are and why we do what we do and why we're in this together. And that's why this year our theme is Never Walk Alone, because I don't want one woman out there to feel isolated and alone. I want you to come to the Brave Enough conference and bring a friend. Show up, gift yourself this. You will not regret it. I promise you, you will not regret it. It's so empowering and encouraging and life-changing. It's a safe environment for you to get the help that you need to thrive all year. You're going to meet other women there. You're going to have access to the speakers. You're going to have phenomenal speakers like what we just heard, things that you will not hear other places. I do not create a typical CME conference for women. I create something different. Why? Because it's what I need. And I want you, if you're going to leave your family, leave your jobs, and you're going to commit to a weekend, I want you to be blown away. And that's why you need to be at Brave Enough, the 2024 CME conference in Scottsdale. Mark it now. Gift it to yourself. Do it. Whatever you're doing today, stop and do this. I'm telling you, you don't want to miss out. Go to braveenoughconference.com and sign up today, and I will see you in Scottsdale.